Back in April, I did a reaction / impression video for the Switch 2 reveal. In that reveal, I of course gave my quick thoughts on the Switch 2 hardware, but the main thing I was excited to cover was the cool surprises on the software side. I mentioned in the reveal that it's cool and all to hear about the new hardware and all the new bells and whistles that come with it, especially for a Nintendo piece of hardware, but it simply felt like it's just a new Switch. And I think now, being several months removed from the actual launch of the device, that it is just another Switch. Don't get me wrong, I love my Switch 2, but even back then on the reveal in April, I knew the most exciting thing going in, of course, was going to be the software, the games that we would be getting our greedy little grubs on later, maybe even this year. And that's what we got. It's always a wonderful moment waking up and watching both hardware and software reveals in the same show. Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, a should have been tie-in game, and wheelchairs. Man, what a time. But when Nintendo snuck in a surprise sequel to a 22-year-old Sakurai game, a game that I cherished the hell out of growing up, I of course had to focus my reaction video to that exact game. Now here we are today, months after the release of the Switch 2, Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, there should have been tie-in, and just days after the wheelchair game with a new direct focused entirely on the game that originally piqued my interest in the reveal event. Nintendo just gave us a surprising 45 minutes of new information on the sequel to Kirby Air Ride. I say surprising because, look, I'm super excited for this game. I played it religiously growing up, but even I understand that this is certainly an interesting choice to now make a sequel to, in the same year as a new Mario Kart no less, because the original isn't necessarily regarded as being a great game, or maybe even a good game for that matter. But it's certainly a game, like For Myself, that has a dedicated cult following. Nonetheless, the original is relatively bare bones, with most of its content being largely ignored, so the fact that we got this big of a direct today, again, is surprising. But if you're watching this, I'm sure you're already familiar with Kirby Air Ride. So anyways, today we got a 45-minute long look at the upcoming Kirby Air Riders, and it gave us our first and definitive look at what the hell this 22-year-old Sakurai sequel is finally gonna look like. And I gotta say, it looks like Kirby Air Ride. In typical Sakurai fashion, his encyclopedic approach to a direct is full of depth with system deep dives, his hands-on gameplay, and even some history lessons. It's honestly really charming to hear this legend just kind of geek out about it all. This guy really loves his craft, so it's no surprise that this was going to be a long one. He did the same kind of thing for the lead up to the release of Smash, so I think we saw this coming. However, it is surprising that this game is in fact still heavily inspired by the original. I know that's a crazy thing to say, but up until this point, I wasn't sure how this thing was actually going to pan out. I thought, maybe this is just some elaborate way to attach Kirby to a new modern twist on a racing formula. But no, sure enough, this is very much still a conservative sequel and definitely not a Mario Kart. Definitely not.
こりゃマリオカートで良いですね。キャラもののレースでギミックのあるコースを走ったり戦ったりすると。こりゃ完全にマリオカートで良いでしょう。
For those of you who may not be familiar with the original game, Kirby Air Ride had one button, that's it. The game kind of played itself with the game's carts or machines, accelerating on its own, and with you simply just trying to control the diverse catalog of chaotic, almost unpredictable machines. With the modern lens, it's easy to look back and see this as being one-noted, and probably impossible to pull off in today's age, but clearly not for Sakurai. Sakurai is double downing on the original game's vision, but of course adding layers to the game's original systems that add a required depth for any true and modern sequel. The core identity of the fast, one-button controlling, battling races is still there, but there's several new additions that I believe are going to appropriately evolve this game. Character or rider selection is more important than ever, as each and every rider from the colorful roster, which has substantially grown, offers unique stats and abilities that subsequently affects how each machine from its roster, which has also substantially grown, handles, allowing for combinations of riders and machines to have more of an effect on a single race, which just naturally invites experimentation. Additionally, adding a second action button seems a bit blasphemous, but as Sakurai explains, to expand the depth and the scope of the game, it felt necessary, and honestly, who cares? I think it's a welcome addition and only is going to create more chaos. Overall, with all the new features, the core of the races look largely indifferent. There's the green arrowed boost pads, the purple question marks that give abilities, giant cannons that shoot you across the map, colorful and twisting rails. It's all there. Suckable enemies that grant abilities litter the tracks, little ramps that grant little gliding moments, it looks like it plays exactly how I remember it playing, and also not to mention, it also looks beautiful. It's so much fun going through this history lesson and seeing all the things that are so recognizable and just nostalgic to me. I played so much of the original with my sisters and best friend growing up that we kind of came up with like our own headcanon for what things were called and how they worked. So when I saw the Wagon Star, I immediately thought the ice cream truck, the vacuum, the bubblegum. We're even seeing the blue variant of Kirby and thinking, yeah, that's the fastest Kirby. I even enjoy seeing them go through the menus and feeling familiar. And what was that? Is that what I think it is? I think if there was any concern for any fan of the original for this game, it was of course whether or not the mode the first game was really known for was going to make a return. And of course I was a fool for having even a bit of doubt, because Sakurai comes out with the whole second half, and again, of this 45-minute long direct and basically said, I know why you're here.
トライアルを説明します。ここがメインディッシュ。ファンの方もこれを待っていたのではないかなと。
Yes, we are, Sakurai. City Trial is making its long-awaited, glorious return, taking all the things we know and love about it and elevating it to 16. In my Switch 2 reveal, I talk about Air Ride, but mainly the City Trial mode. And in that video, I put out there, what if they took the core concept and really elevate it by adding more players to every given round? And sure enough, that's exactly what they're doing. Maybe not to the scale I had imagined, but scaled up nonetheless. Much like the subtle evolution of the core Air Ride mode that I just went over, that being how it looks like it feels very familiar to the first entry with only a few additions added that create that fresh and added depth for modern gaming, City Trial seems to be heading in that exact same direction. It looks like City Trial, with really the only glaring differences being that already mentioned increased player count, and of course this new and original playground, Skya. I can't even begin to express how impressive this looks. The perks and the power-ups are scattered everywhere. The destructible red and blue box, the poor trees that stand in the way, hell, even the grind rails on the edge of the map, it's all there. And like I said, they're adding all these little and personally welcomed additions to this mode and implementing them in a way that doesn't all seem like it's distracting or taken away from its gameplay roots. 5 minutes on the clock to run around, find better rides, improve rides, battle others, participate in events, and build the perfect machine before heading into the final showdown. Perhaps they could have taken that original concept and ran with it a little bit more, but I think there's enough here that innovates while staying true to the reason that we're all here. I did get nervous at one point with this new feature where you can transfer from one machine to another by simply just driving near one and hopping on it, fearing that we wouldn't be able to hop off our machines to run around freely, but no, we could still play tag. It's still little things like that. There's a couple stadium events that are making a return along with some fun looking new ones. The same thing can be said about the events within the trial. Even seeing the ability to alter the game's rules through the settings is an underappreciated feature we don't talk about enough when games give us that option. The map Skya, as I mentioned before, looks like a lot of fun. It looks somewhat familiar to that first City Trial map, you know, with a city in the middle, an underground area, a volcano area, and even a glass platform floating high in the sky. It's a visual delight, and I think it's just going to be a blast exploring. I think one of the really interesting things about Sakurai's game philosophy is his rock, paper, scissors approach to systems and games, which initially sounds pretty basic, but I think it's expertly implemented in a game like this, a quote-unquote racing game, no less. The dynamic decision-making of how to approach a playstyle, even as subtle as choosing a different machine, has so many layers in that alone. It secretly elevates the game to be more strategic and worth exploring. But just like with rock, paper, scissors, there's a random and risk element that inherently has you, the player, contemplating on how to decide to approach a certain situation, or just say screw it. Here, the final stadium events are sometimes random, so what kind of machine do you build? Do you find and build one that flies well? Maybe one that hits like a truck? What about one that's super fast? I think there's the perfect amount of gamey randomness that Sakurai likes to sprinkle in his games with his easy to learn but hard to master systems, and turns what could be a totally skill-based sweat match and instead into more of a party game. I think on the surface, it's easy to look past something like that for a game like this, but I do think that there is a level of skill in this and even the original that can certainly be used to your advantage, but in the end is left to chance, while maybe still giving the edge to skillful players. Overall, I think this game looks great. I'm so happy we got a direct like this. You know, Donkey Kong Bonanza only got like a 20-minute direct, but here we are with Sakurai who's gushing about his baby, and honestly, I enjoyed it. Every second of it. The only question I'm left with at the end of this is whether or not this will tip the scales. Whether or not people who have no experience with this rudimentary controls, funky handling, and fast, chaotic pace of Air Ride will enjoy or even accept this for being a modern $70 game. A price tag that, by the way, they conveniently left out of the direct. This is certainly just my cynical side considering this, but I think with the reception of Mario Kart World now being 3 months removed from its release, having now kind of fizzled out, I wonder now if Riders could even not necessarily do better financially or critically, but be looked at as its own and not looked down on because of how fundamentally different it is from Mario Kart. I guess what I'm trying to ask is that if people weren't necessarily jazzed of Mario Kart World, are they going to look at this and think that this is just as interesting, if not more, and worth a shot? I'd say probably not. I know air ride fans like myself are going to eat this shit up, but I just can't imagine a world in which a wacky racing game holds even a match to Mario's racing game. But honestly, I don't even care. I'm getting a sequel to a game that I love 22 years later. A game that honestly had no right getting a sequel in the first place, but I love that we are, and I cannot wait for November 20th. Was it November 20th? Yep, November 20th. Yeah, so if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, because when that game comes out, I'm definitely gonna be playing a lot. Probably will do a review, probably will even stream it. Maybe I'll get my friend and my sisters back on. Cannot wait. But that does beg another question. Where is Metroid gonna be? It's gonna be an interesting fall for Nintendo, but I'm excited. They got a lot lined up. Pokemon's next, I believe. I don't know, but it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a fun game. I don't know how it's gonna do with the reviews. Like I said, I don't know if it's gonna be that great critically, but I can imagine that it's going to capture the hearts, at least for the air ride fans, which is, what more can you do? I mean, for God's sake, you're making a sequel to Kirby Air Ride. You got to do that, right? You got to get that win. Otherwise, what the hell is the point? Check out my shorts. I've been posting a lot of shorts. I am doing my top 50 favorite video games of all time, and I am currently on day 16 or something, 15. I don't know, but yeah, go check those out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.